Good morning. Welcome to BFM's Morning Headlines. I'm Lynn. It is Tuesday, May 27th, 2014, last week of May. And you know what? For the last week, it's kind of a doozy. The newspapers are taking us on a roller coaster ride of emotion. But, you know, stick around for the good news. I promise we're going to finish on a high. All right, so we kick things off with the Malay Mail. As you may know on this show, I like to point out stellar Photoshop work. And this surely is that. So they've covered the entire front page with a story on how the friendship between Malaysia and China continues to grow, as exemplified by our leaders and by the highly pixelated national icons behind them, KLCC and the Great Wall of China. It's really just a story about how our Prime Minister is visiting China, going to be hosted in a private dinner, followed by a delegation of 200 businessmen and entrepreneurs and so on. It's a page of leaders, really, because there's this story as well, which I want to return to in a little bit. And moving on to Utusan Malaysia, they've also gone with our Prime Minister's visit to China over here. But more importantly, perhaps more interestingly, Syndicate di Laut Berleluasa, following up on a story that they covered last week about the siphoning off of diesel. And they've identified a number of ships, 3 of which are from as far away as Panama. And continuing with the bad news bears segment of today's news, unfortunately, we have the story of Elliot Rodger, who recently went on a killing spree in California and who has a Penang mother, which is where this connection is coming from. Much loved boy turns killer. I'm always highly disinterested and mistrustful of emotionally manipulative headlines, and I have to say that this is one of those cases, simply because when you read the story, unloved killer was adored. The star have basically gone and spoke to, I think, 2 of his mother's friends who haven't seen her in a long time, who still live in Penang, and who are going on about hypotheticals about how if this boy had been in Malaysia, he would have been a success with the girls and maybe none of this would have happened. I just don't know about that sort of speculation in a time where people are really, really mourning. And speaking of mourning, we have the story of policeman, or rather of Lance Corporal Muhammad Azwan Abdullah, who died on the spot after his motorcycle was knocked over by a bunch of robbers he was pursuing. It's a very sad story. It's one in which the papers are going full tilt because, of course, crime is always something we're all worried about, and it's that much worse when it happens to the watchman. But if you were in the mood for, you know, just absolute tragedy, then Harian Metro has you covered. They've gone with the story of Muhammad Azwan Abdullah as well, emphasizing, of course, what everybody is emphasizing, namely that he was, I think, 3 days away from getting married. It didn't really need any help getting more tragic, but there it is. As well as a story about a baby who has been sleeping with his eyes open for 7 months due to a rare condition. And what Harian Metro have done, if you look within the papers, is they've done an entire page of just bad baby news, as well as an entire page of bad gay news. So there you go, Harian Metro doing themed pages. And Berita Harian have also gone with coverage of Muhammad Azwan Abdullah, but also continuing the look at Cadbury, chocolate, DNA, pig, halal, haram, basically looking at how they're planning to investigate the story further. But in the meantime, people have also started asking for damages. Apparently 80 NGOs will be suing Cadbury for wrongly using that halal sign, so you know, that's just great for them. So yeah, that's the last of the bad news, thankfully. I hope you were paying attention earlier, because there was mention of Datuk Sri Najib Razak saying that, look, we are for internet freedom, essentially saying that the legal action he's taken against Malaysia Kini is an isolated incident. He's drawing a very clear line between defamation and the right to criticize the government. Now, I would question where that line really is, because I think, you know, I think, Prime Minister, that some people may disagree with you. But I promised that we would end on good news, and so we are, because kittens, you guys! Basically, fee line of duty, the headline says. And a policeman in Johor risked life and limb to go 50 meters down into a drain to retrieve a kitten. Look, kitten. All of which brings us to my word of the day, which is freedom, as in the freedom of a kitten to be liberated from a drain, but also the freedom of all Malaysians and all journalists to say the things that they want to say. And that wraps it up. You've been watching Morning Headlines. I'm Lynn, BFM 89.9.